Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So, the drama between China and Europe just went nuclear. No, it's not about electric cars or steel tariffs this time. It's about chips, the tiny, powerful semiconductors that run everything from your phone to your car. And right now, China is furious, not just at the European Union, but specifically at one country, the Netherlands. You remember Nexperia, right? The Chinese-owned chip company that got seized by the Dutch government. Well, that move just opened a Pandora's box that Europe might regret for decades, because what started as a national security dispute is quickly turning into a full-blown semiconductor war. Let's rewind. When the Netherlands seized Nexperia claiming security concerns, it wasn't supposed to be a big deal. It was just one company, one factory, one headline. But China didn't see it that way. Beijing called it a hostile act, a political stunt designed to corner China in the global tech race. Now Chinese state media is firing back with warnings that sound more like ultimatums. Translation: play around and you'll find out. And here's where it gets scary. China's leverage isn't just in rhetoric, it's in resources. They control more than 60% of the world's rare earth processing, the metals used in chips, batteries, and even wind turbines. And when it comes to legacy chips, the older, reliable semiconductors, used in cars and industrial machines, China is already king. In 2023, China held 31% of the global market. By 2029, it could be 50%. That means 1 out of every 2 cars, machines, or phones could be running on Chinese chips. So when the Netherlands froze Nexperia's assets, China didn't just see an insult, it saw an opportunity. Because now, Beijing can flip the script and squeeze Europe right where it hurts. Here's the chaos part. Since the seizure, the Dutch unit of Nexperia has been cut off from its China branch, which handled packaging and final production. Now the Dutch are panicking. They don't know when or if those chips will ever arrive. Meanwhile, the Chinese government has stepped in, meaning every automaker in Europe, from Volkswagen to Mercedes, is sweating bullets. Because to get the chips they need, they now have to talk directly to China's Ministry of Commerce. Let that sink in. Beijing can literally decide which European companies survive. The Dutch didn't just start a legal fight, they started an economic hostage crisis. The EU's automotive sector is worth trillions, and guess what it desperately needs? Legacy chips, the kind China dominates. To meet just 80% of its demand, Europe would need to triple its current chip production capacity. That's practically impossible without massive investment and years of construction. And even if they succeed, the chips would still be more expensive and technologically behind. So, European automakers face 2 horrible choices: pay inflated prices to non-Chinese suppliers, making their cars less competitive, or move production to China just to stay alive. The result? A massive shift of industry away from Europe. And that's the domino effect nobody in Brussels wants to talk about. Let's be real, the Netherlands didn't just underestimate China's response, they underestimated the entire economic web tying Europe to Asia. By targeting one company, they signaled to every Chinese firm, you're not safe investing in the EU. Now, Chinese investors are pulling back. Semiconductor partnerships are freezing, and Beijing is quietly tightening export controls. This isn't just retaliation, it's a long game. Because while Europe talks about strategic autonomy, China's building it brick by brick, wafer by wafer. And if you think this is just a China-EU spat, think again. Across the Atlantic, the US chip war is spiraling too. Washington is blocking AI chip sales to China to keep Beijing behind in artificial intelligence. But even American tech leaders are starting to panic. OpenAI's Sam Altman recently faced questions about his company's astronomical $1.4 trillion valuation. Yes, trillion. On just a fraction of that in revenue. That's when you realize the entire AI industry is running on hype and capital, not sustainable revenue. And who's supposed to keep feeding that hype machine? Nvidia. Except, Nvidia just lost its biggest customer, China. Their market share in China dropped from 90% to 0 in less than a year. That's catastrophic. And it's why even US Treasury officials are now hinting that maybe, just maybe, Chinese firms could one day get access to advanced Nvidia chips again. Translation: they need the money. But Beijing's not waiting. China's government has launched a massive effort to fund its own semiconductor ecosystem. Billions of yuan are flooding into companies like Cambricon, one of China's top chip makers, and its tech giants Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu are all pouring money into domestic chip research. Huawei's new processors have already surpassed some of Nvidia's weaker chips that are still allowed for export. China's catching up and fast. Remember, they only really started sprinting in 2023, after the US bans. 2 years later they're already closing the gap. At this pace, by 2027, China could be producing chips that rival or even outperform Western designs. And here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about chips, it's about currency power. China's central bank, the PBOC, just unveiled a plan to internationalize the yuan, or as it's officially called, the RMB. Now don't get it twisted, China isn't trying to replace the US dollar outright. They just want to make it sanction-proof. By expanding RMB trade settlements, they reduce the power of US sanctions and make it easier for countries to do business with China, without touching dollars at all. Last month, nearly 50% of China's cross-border payments were done in RMB. The dollar, below 46%. That's a major psychological shift, and it's accelerating. A stronger yuan means cheaper imports for Chinese consumers and more purchasing power for Chinese companies. It's a virtuous cycle that boosts confidence, investment, and global demand for their currency. Meanwhile, as the dollar's dominance faces pressure, another quiet shift is happening. Gold. If you were Beijing and wanted to protect your currency, what would you buy from the West? Gold, lots of it, and that's exactly what's happening. China has been draining gold from Western exchanges for months. Every ounce imported into Beijing strengthens the yuan's credibility. Ironically, this entire setup was triggered years ago by Donald Trump's trade war, which forced global buyers to seek Chinese alternatives. Now, those same tariffs are back, and the yuan is likely to strengthen even more as the Fed keeps cutting rates. So here's where we stand. The Netherlands made a move, China countered, and now the entire global semiconductor supply chain is teetering on a knife's edge. The EU is trapped between US security pressure and Chinese economic dominance. The US is trying to keep its AI bubble alive while losing its biggest customer base. And China? It's quietly building a future where it controls not just chips and metals, but money itself. This isn't just an economic war anymore. It's a global chess match for technological supremacy. So, what do you think? Will the Dutch government back down? Will China unleash its full chip power on Europe? And could Chinese semiconductors soon rival Nvidia's top products? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your take might just predict the next major move in this global game of power. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another breakdown of the world's biggest geopolitical shifts. Because this story is far from over.